Okay, welcome everybody to our third session. We have AARP to talk about downsizing and decluttering. And today we're so excited to have Tiffany from AARP and Diane and Chris. Tiffany, I will let you introduce the A team.
Thank you so much, Tina. We're delighted to be here. And like you mentioned, we have an amazing team helping support today's presentation. So I'm on staff with AARP California, but we have two amazing volunteers here to share more about our decluttering and downsizing tips. So we have Chris who will be presenting and Diane will be supporting in the chat. So we'd love to have your interaction. Put your comments in the chat or raise your hand or the reactions tool, which is that little smiley face at the bottom, thumbs up, whatever you like. This is a really interactive discussion and we just hope you leave today with some tips or motivation to, get started on your own decluttering and downsizing process. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic over to Chris. Thank you so much. And we look forward to a great presentation.
All right. Thank you, Tiffany. I'm Chris. I'm with the San Jose AARP volunteer team. And we're glad that you're all here today. Diane is going to be helping us with the chat today. And as you are all starting to join us, if you would just go into the chat and put your name and what city you're from. And then as you're coming in, Diane will give us a shout out. We are looking at downsizing and decluttering. You can't take it with you. And we're glad that you're here with us today. And we're going to ask we all to be on mute. And as we get going, Tiffany will mute you if you're not able to do that. And then during our presentation, there'll be time where we're going to be asking for you to place some items in chat, and we'll get to that pretty soon. So let's start with our slideshow. And Diane, do we have anyone for you to call out?
Yes, we do. Active participation. Yay. Myrna from San Mateo. Hi. Veronica from Sarasota, Florida. I wish I could be there. Nancy from Montara near Half Moon Bay. Oh, I wish I could be there too, except I wouldn't be able to get home last night. Carol from El Granada. Oh, right there in Half Moon Bay area too. Yolanda from Redwood City, and I'm calling in from Google Town, Mountain View. Carol is from Napa. I'll be there this weekend. Janet from Newark, welcome. And Sarita, hi from Benicia. And Veronica from Redwood City, G from Sonoma, Tina from Los Gatos, all some of my favorite places. Wow, thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, Diane. Welcome, everybody. We're glad you're here. Tiffany, let's start with our slideshow. Okay, we can see this person here. Some of you may know who this is, some of you may not. So, this, before I say who this is, let's have a quick amount of people here. Just chat who you think this is. Can we go into the next slide, please? Okay, a quick agenda while you're all putting into the chat who you think that is going to help us gain a general understanding of why stuff is so important. We're going to learn practical, easy to follow downsizing and decluttering tips. Next slide, please. We have some demographics that you're looking at. Older Americans are the fastest growing demographics. Next. And we see how generations and their stuff and what happens here. We have the millennials, the Gen X, the baby boomers, and the silent generation. And guess which ones are holding on to their stuff and which ones really don't want their stuff. I have two that are in the millennials, and I am downsizing, decluttering. I'm looking to hopefully move to Santa Cruz into a smaller place. Had my daughters come through my house, and guess what? They each chose an item. That means I get to declutter the rest of everything else. Why is that? The millennials don't have the emotional attachment to the stuff that we do, which is why it makes it so difficult for us to be able to declutter the things that we attach emotions to. an example, I had to give away a shirt that my daughter picked out for me when she graduated from high school. I just gave it away last week. So I just had emotional attachment to it, even though it doesn't fit me anymore. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, why does all this matter? The largest amount of people ever requiring health care are boomers and their parents. We have two generations attach pride to their stuff because of hard work and memories, and I just covered that, and impending shortage of affordable housing for downsizing, which we're seeing in the news more and more, rising costs of healthcare, more services provided within the home. The number one thing that impedes people from leaving their home and or getting healthcare into their homes is the stuff. Diane, how are we doing on the chat? And you're on mute.
Unmute. Okay. Let me get back to the chat here. Yes, we do have some good guessers there. It's King Tut, Tutankhamun. Thank you for those. And we have Tina saying, my husband is very attached to all his t-shirts and pants, even if it doesn't fit anymore. Yeah, that's what Chris was saying. Yeah. Silent generation holds on to stuff.
Okay, so we have King Tut. That's very good. We're going to look at a slide about him a little bit later on. Tiffany, let's go on to our next slide, please. Okay, of a national care survey, the majority of caretakers said handling the stuff was the most stressful part of settling the estate. And that's very true because as we're aging, I said, again, we have those emotions attached to our stuff. I remember going through my mom and dad's stuff, my brother and I, and it was a challenge parting with a lot of their things, but neither of us really had room because we had gathered so much stuff in our house. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, well, this is kind of a point blank, isn't it? No one wants your stuff. Okay, let's go on to our next slide. I'm going to look at some downsizing and decluttering tips. 10 helpful hints. First of all, include everyone in the house. So husbands, grandkids, everyone. And fortunately, in my family, we all gathered. No one fought over anything. We shared stories, and it was just a good time to be together, even though it was my mom and dad that had passed, and you're trying to deal with grieving and emotions and time with family. So if you can include everyone in the house, that helps you get through the process. Next slide. Okay, this was real helpful for us, and especially for me. A 10-minute sweep. Let's go on to the next slide. What that means, a 10-minute sweep, is that you're going to find things like a bag full of stuff, which I did find. And what you do is you just simply set up a little small area, and in 10 minutes, you clean out one little section of that area. So you're looking at this closet, choose a little section, set 10 minutes as your goal, and when you're done, walk away. And you may come back to it later on that day, you may come back to it the next day. But if you do this each time, you're going to find that you're going to add a little bit more time until you can go through and be comfortable spending a little more time with that. Next slide. Okay, unpack bags. We went through some of the stuff that's been sitting out on the porch for years after I moved. We found a bag, opened it up, and it was a bag full of stuff my wife had not unpacked. There was swimsuits, towels, things that were wet, and everything was moldy. We just had to throw it all away. So she has since passed. This was years ago. One of the things that I share with my daughters, when you get home, no matter how tired you are, unpack that bag. Next slide. Okay, every item has a home. Now, I wish my closet looked like this, but it's getting there. So if you have a place for each item, it really helps when it's decluttering time. Next slide. Okay, the 4-pile sort. This has been very helpful with me getting through my house, and I learned it here on the AARP site. So we have the keeps, the sell, the donate, and the trash. And what I did is I put the keep in the farthest room away from where I was sorting things. So when I came across something I wanted to keep, by the time I walked back to that room, I could think through, do I really want to keep this? Does it need, or can I sell it or donate it? The trash, so I had 3 things in the room that I was sorting through: the sell, the donate, and the trash, with the 4th item, keep, the furthest away as possible. Next slide.
Hey, Chris, before we move on.
Okay,
I
Diane.
see a hand up from Tina of Fondi.
Yeah, I have a question. The keep pile, that's where I get stuck with my husband. I mean, he wants to keep everything. So our garage is like a hoarder's garage. And I can give him keep, sell, donate, and trash, but 90% he would want to keep. So do you have a strategy for keeping things out of the keep pile?
That's a very good question. How is his memory? You may want to, at some time before you sort with him, kind of go through some items that you think he may not be upset over if they don't show up in the keep pile, and maybe sneak them to a different area. And then as you're going through it, if he never brings it up, he probably doesn't remember it's there. So you could give that a try and see how it goes. If it goes well, great. If it doesn't, that's right, that's in this other room, so you've got a little backup there.
Right.
I'd also like to add in, this is a principle that my aunt taught me, and I think she's really believes in the idea of balance. And so the idea is one thing in, one thing out. So if he wants to keep one item, that means he also has to remove one item. So let's say you have a pack of 10 things that he's trying to keep. Say, okay, if you're going to keep these 10 things, then you need to pick 10 other things to get rid of to kind of balance that out. I know you kind of have to be a little stricter on that, but it's the idea of balance there. So hopefully that could be a tactic. Also, good rule of thumb, if you haven't touched it, use it, seen it, thought about it in at least a year or 2, you're probably not even using it. So
Right.
that's another
Exactly.
thing to kind of encourage a different thought process around it. But sometimes I know emotional attachment can be hard. So little encouragements and practices like that will hopefully kind of change their mindset on it.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good idea. And also, I heard about Marie Kondo. Is if it doesn't bring joy to you, toss it or donate it.
Very good.
Yes.
Thank
Go
you,
for it, Chris.
Tiffany.
We have a few
With
comments. Also,
Go ahead, Diane.
so thank you for your contributions in chat. Carol says, I've been told only keep it if you use it or love it. And Yolanda said same, sort of similar to Tiffany, is if you haven't used it in 2 years, you won't use it, so get rid of it. I try to use that, Yolanda. It doesn't always work for me.
Oh, very good. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So what Tiffany brought up also, I also learned in the this presentation, anytime now I purchase a clothing item, I make sure I take something out. And I try to take out 2 things, just to try to keep ahead of it. So that's a good example. All right. Thank you, Diana and Tiffany and everybody.
More, Chris, one more, sorry. Because Ruth has a very good suggestion here. Some people take a photo of the item before donating.
Oh, very good.
I like that. Nancy likes it too. Okay. I'll try it.
Let's move on to our next slide. Okay, distribute legacy items now. My brother's wife helped us with that because at the time my daughters didn't want to keep any of the legacy items other than my mom's rings. And so my wife's brother's wife set aside some things. And now that my daughters are older, they're saying, oh, we wish we had kept more things from your mom and from our mom. And they are there for them. My daughter-in-law did that. So that was one helpful hint that I never thought about at the time.
I really
Okay.
like this, the legacy items now. My mother-in-law actually had a fall 5 years ago, and then she had to move to a home, and she had so much stuff. You know, if we had to do a little planning, we would have dispersed those earlier. So we actually donate most of it.
Okay.
But whereas if we had dispersed it to other people, they would have been able to use it earlier, right?
Yes, that's the thing. The emotion kicks in. We'd want to distribute them, but if you do the items now, that's a good suggestion that others now can use these items or enjoy these items if they're on display in their home. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, avoid punting. So put some thoughts in the chat. What do you think this means, avoid punting? And as they come up, Diane, if you would chat those out for us.
Pass on third down.
Yes. That's very good.
Like that, John.
Yep.
Ruth has procrastinating. Nancy says, do your research and know the value of items. What was once valuable may no longer be valuable. That's another input. There was an interesting question about magazines. I don't know if anybody else has some answers for Carol. She was wondering about what do you do with magazines? I was thinking of libraries because they have fundraising sales, but I don't know what the situation is during the pandemic.
That's a good question because the pandemic, I used to donate it to the hospital, but when the pandemic, they couldn't take them because they didn't have a way to clean them. So I guess you will have to check back now, but you've got the hospital, and then the other place was the retirement homes. And we had a grief share group at our church, and we would use the magazines and make collages of memories of folks. So there's just a few ideas. Anything pop up in chat?
Yeah, Yolanda has a similar idea that you're saying sometimes schools use magazines because they cut them out to make collages also.
Okay.
I know a special needs group used to use that as well, but they don't accept. I know that for sure because I asked them. They won't accept things like paper items. Oh, Carol says Napa Recycling takes them along with newspapers, paper, and recyclable glass, tin, and plastic. So I guess just recycling would be one thing since it's all paper.
Yes, we don't want to throw them in the trash, so recycle would be good. Let's go to our next slide, please. Okay, donate. So put some of your favorite areas where you like to donate, who you like to donate to, because we have so many people from so many different areas. Some of these places may show up that you never thought of. So, for example, my brother, while you're typing those in, my brother-in-law loves to go thrifting. I went with him one day over to Santa Cruz and found so many different places to donate at thrift stores I didn't know existed. And of course, you can also Google, which isn't quite as fun, but if you have someone who loves to thrift, just hitch a ride with them. So right here in San Jose, my favorite place is Savers. I call it treasure hunting, and I try not to go in when I go donate, or I may come out with more than I go donate. So we have some suggestions, Diane?
Yeah, they're coming in as next door. Also, Google advertise Google or advertise on Nextdoor Marketplace. So is Goodwill and Salvation Army. Animal shelters, hospitals are taking blankets. It's true. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I think we all get the idea that,
Thank you for all of that input.
yeah,
But
so
you can
donate, donate,
continue,
donate.
you can continue typing in and sharing your ideas. I think, yeah, everybody.
Okay, Tiffany, next slide, please.
Before we jump to the next slide, do you mind if I actually go back to the previous slide to talk about punting real
Sure.
quick? Because I think we had some guesses, but I wanted to clarify that punting is kind of when you convince, and sometimes people use guilt to do this, and then for the next generation to take an item that they may or may not want. Classic examples, this has been in the family for however many years. You have to take it, which is fine for certain items, but being thoughtful about that, because maybe one or two items works, but the whole furniture set, the glass set, the tea set, sometimes that isn't the most helpful, and then it just kind of puts that onus on your kids or other people, which can be a challenge. And sometimes that next generation doesn't feel the obligation to keep it, or they may not want it. So have a conversation around that. It's always helpful versus expecting them to take all your legacy items or things like that. I know it's a challenging things. We've heard some stories of people, their parents collected these dolls. I will tell you, my mom's was really into the Beanie Baby to take care or keep all 300 Beanie Babies that she's collected over the years, because I don't have the space for it and I don't have the same emotional attachment to it as she does.
That's a very good point, Tiffany. I like that you shared that for your generation, right?
Yeah,
A good
definitely.
perspective.
It's always good to have a conversation too,
Mhm.
and just to talk about what it means. And I think it's always helpful. Yeah, one or two, I do want to have the family history, but maybe not all the items.
Right.
It's a good point you brought up, Tiffany. That reminds me of my brother-in-law. When I said, "What are you going to do with all your stuff in your house?" He goes, "Oh, when I go, your daughters can take care of it." So there's a huge punting issue there. And I said, "No, we need to talk about this."
Right. And that's the important part, is talking about it to, in case something happens and you didn't even know that was going to happen. And now there's this huge responsibility and things that you didn't expect to have to take care of or move or work. Diane, I see your hands raised.
So I'm still going over through my parents' stuff who passed 5 or 6 years ago. And I learned one lesson, because people are going, well, if we knew the significance of that, maybe we'd take. So what I'm doing, I'm trying to start labeling my own things with stories behind how I got it, what the significance is, as I happen to have a lot of my grandparents' stuff too. And I need to start labeling those things.
Yeah, that's
Very
a great
good.
idea.
When my daughters come over, I walk them through the house, and I do kind of what Diane said, but I said, when I go, before you give everything away, bring someone in to see if there's anything worth of value. Because I have hand-me-downs from grandparents, furniture. It might actually have some value to it, and you don't want to give that money away. And if nothing has any value, then you just donate it. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Okay. Be realistic. Clothing and food. Do we really need that many sets of pants? Okay, men. That's a lot. And do they all fit? So I did spend some time going through my closet, which looked like that. And I had a lot of clothes that didn't fit anymore. So that was just, okay, they got to go. And then food items, I'm back to my brother-in-law. When one of his cousins comes to visit from Minnesota, she goes through his pantry and his refrigerator and throws out everything that has expired. So if you've got something sitting around in your food pantry that's expired, you really need to give that a toss. Next slide.
Do you mind if I add a quick thought on that
Sure.
topic as well? Thanks, Chris. And this is a challenging topic sometimes because you have to think about history and some of the stuff that you mentioned in the beginning. And, during certain periods of times, there was, real struggle around food or keeping items. I know also immigrant families, that can be a challenge too, because you want to keep stuff because you're kind of trying to survive and stuff like that. But the key part here is just being realistic and assessing where you're at now. You may not have to keep all the extra food. You might not be kind of in a disaster space or something like that. So just be mindful when you're thinking through that, maybe where some of the underlying kind of motivations for wanting to keep more stuff than you need, or you're just used to doing that. So just wanted to kind of challenge the thought there, just to be realistic and of what your current situation is, and maybe you don't have to have that kind of survival mentality as much as you used to have, or the way you were raised.
That's a good point. I'd forgotten about that. My mom and dad lived through the Depression, and they saved everything. They even had a Cool Whip plastic container filled with rubber bands that weren't rubber bands anymore. They had all melded together. But on the item of food, you reminded me, some food items before they expire, canned or boxed, you can donate to food pantries. So let's move on to our next slide. Okay, pare down paper and photos. Okay, you don't want to see my desk that looks like that. I got mail, I need to shred old documents and bills, I got old photos. The photos I've set aside to go through later on with my daughters. Mail, I get together with my brother-in-law. As you can tell, we're fairly close. And we get together, make a meal, and then watch TV. And then that's when I sort through mail, and then pick out what I need to save and then what needs to be shredded. And then I take it home and put it in my shred pile, which is starting to grow way too big. Let's look at our next photo, please, our next slide.
Just wanted to do a quick plug for this area. So shredding is really important, especially if you have confidential information. But ARP sometimes hosts shredathons in your area where we have those big trucks, or maybe your local library or other organization will have shred events. So hopefully you can bring some of your papers there. Probably the best tip I've ever gotten with sorting paper and just not even bringing it into the house. So if you're able to, if you have a box kind of in your entryway, and when you're bringing your mail in, you already like put away what is spam mail, especially because we get a lot of spam mail these days. Don't even bring it into your house, because then quickly you'll have all this different mail and you're like, wait, which ones were I supposed to keep? Which ones not? So have that trash can right in front of your door and get rid of it before even bringing it further into your house. Also wanted to note, photos is a hard one too, because a lot of photos represent memories, emotions, and experiences. And you probably don't want to know how many photos I have on my phone and printed out, but the kind of best tips that we've heard and had around photos is if you can like write down the story of that photo on the back of that photo, and it still like resonates with you, you should keep that photo. But if you can't recognize anyone besides yourself in that photo, maybe it's not worth keeping, unless maybe it's a class photo from high school or something like that. So just a thought, images. And it's also helpful nowadays, there's services, or your library or anywhere, maybe your own printer, you can scan those photos so you can have them on your computer and access them, rather than having boxes and boxes of pictures. So if you can, maybe pick your 100 best photos. You have 100 stories for each of those photos. That's a good way to start to kind of cut down on some of that paper. And Carol, thank you for that note. With that kind of junk mail trash pile, it's smart. Yeah, rip off your address label or your name, or have a Sharpie and be able to cross it off. Just because we want to keep your personal information private as well.
Good suggestions, Tiffany. I remember going through mom and dad's photos, and I'd forgotten all about that. They wrote down on the back of their photos who it was and where they were at. So that's a good idea. I have a friend of mine who one time asked me to send him photos. So all the photos, I didn't know who they were, what they were about, I sent them to him. So he got a big kick out of that. And I've continued that to this day. I sent him photos that I take on my cell phone of just stuff. It's just random things, and then I'll send it to him, and then he shares it with his youth group, and they'll get a big kick out of it. So, anyways, I'm digressing. Let's go on to our next slide.
Oh, I see John unmuted. Did you have something you wanted to share about that?
Well, what happens if I write in the back of my 35mm slides? Just kidding, just kidding.
No, I appreciate the jokes. That's helpful.
The kids today don't even know what that is. Let's
I've
look
got
at
a closet
Diana.
full of them. I've got a closet full of them.
Hey, we had
Yeah.
to go through 8mm home movies, you know.
Oh, I have some of
Okay.
those too.
Any items, Diane, in our chat before we talk about these photos?
Well, I love this active chat. So we have things about the junk mail and removing the decals. We went through that. I was just going to respond to Nancy. He says, you can put your photos on flash drives. Companies like Legacy Box does this, who I was actually thinking of calling, or put them in a box from something like Shutterfly, or in a book like Shutterfly or Costco has. Oh, yes, those are good. Oh, Carol reminds us, charities send us free labels. I just got some the other day that have to be in the trash, not recycled. So
Okay.
make them less accessible is what I think she's saying.
All right. We also have Shutterfly, so they can do make some albums or calendars or coffee mugs and that kind of thing, but that costs money. My cousin goes to Walgreens, and she puts them, I guess, on a disc, and then you could use that disc and to look at your photos that way. Okay, now we're looking at you can't take it with you. To the left, this was all in that first slide that we saw, King Tut, everything that he had in his tomb. And as you can see, he didn't go to where he went, wherever he may have gone to. Well, on the right, and here's a little bit of some of our stuff. And again, when it's time for us to go, wherever we may go, we can't take it with us. So one of the chats that was brought up is the importance of especially legacy items, going through those now and helping distribute those things now. So, okay, do we have another slide?
A comment on the last slide. I think the you can't take it with you is even more than that. Sometimes it costs you to go faster because when you have such a cluttered house, you trip and you fall. I think that's something that we just need to be aware of. When you have so much clutter, it just causes accidents.
Okay.
Which actually happened to my mother-in-law.
Ah, all right. Yes. Yeah. I've been in many houses that look like this throughout the entire house. And it's not anything for me to say. My house looked like this for the longest time. When my wife passed, I just came and put stuff down. I didn't try to deal with it. And I became a house looking like this. And it's taken a long time to sort through that and get it all out of the way. And a large part of it is the last 3 years I worked before I retired. I worked 13 days on and 1 day off. And I didn't spend my 1 day off sorting. I spent it doing laundry and sleeping. So, but that's a good point. And really nobody came into my house, because if you did, you would trip over stuff.
Hey, Chris,
Okay.
you want
Go ahead,
to lighten up here from Carol? You never see a luggage rack on a hearse. Laugh out loud.
That's a good one. Good one, Carol.
Very good. Tiffany, any comments?
Yeah, no, Chris, I appreciate you sharing that story, and that's, often the reality for a lot of people. So hopefully from this presentation, because we shared 10 different tips, maybe, you start with that 10-minute sweep and You just start with 10 minutes and you slowly break it down. You know, that whole idea of a snowball effect, little actions will start to compound, and then hopefully that'll help support that. Happens the other way too. If you've collected a lot of stuff, hopefully starting early or just taking in small chunks. You know, what's that saying about an elephant? You can't eat an elephant in one bite. You kind of have to take it at chunks. So hopefully today's presentation is just a little reminder, motivation to get started, but also be mindful if, you know, if you're in a challenging situation or you're managing a change in your life, that it's totally okay. And, you know, you got to do the best with what you can at the time, and also reach out for help if you do need it. There's a lot of great supportive services too, or I know nowadays there's even like a whole industry around decluttering experts or organizing experts, if that's some help that you might need as well. So just know there's supportive services out there for you.
Okay, let's go to our last slide and our conclusion. Any questions, any comments, any suggestions? We do have, while you're thinking about that, maybe putting some things in chat, we have worked very diligently on a survey and getting that survey down below 5 minutes and having just, I think, 3 essential questions, maybe 4. And so please do fill out the survey when we get to that. As I said, as a team, we all shared our ideas about surveys, how much we just don't like them, and what can we do to make this survey something that would be easy for you to get through and have some meaning for you. And we do go through it and we look at it and we take the ideas and suggestions and put them into our next presentation. So I want to thank everybody for being here, and to comment from one of my favorite movies by Grapthar's Hammer, what an audience. We're really glad that you're here. Tiffany, you want to wrap it up?
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. And you mentioned a survey, and I think we'll connect with Tina about it, and hopefully we'll be able to email that to you all, just to ask basically if you enjoyed this presentation,
Great.
any way that we can improve it. Sorry that I don't have it actively ready right now, so
That's
that's my
okay.
apologies, Chris.
Yeah, we can send it to the people that register for the class.
That would be great. Thank you. And I see we do have one question on any tips for sorting piles of unrelated papers besides kind of spreading out and creating file folders. Chris, do you have any thoughts on that?
Sometimes for me, I do that, the slide we had where you put into 4 different piles, and the immediate, and then I'm not sure what this is, I should look at it, then you obvious junk mail, and then the things that you do need to make sure you save. And a lot of times for me, I have to think about things. So I got to look through things and then think about it, and then get to it. And sometimes I just, I can't think about it right now. I'll look at it tomorrow, not procrastinating, just I know myself. And I don't want to toss something out that may be important. I do bring the mail in and I do go through each piece, fend it. So that's just one thing that I do. But I do like the idea of not getting the mail inside the house if it's obvious spam mail.
Yeah, definitely. And another suggestion too, you can combine some of the tips that we talked about today. You could kind of use a 10-minute sweep on the boxes. Just do 1 box a weekend or 1 box while you're watching your favorite TV show. Maybe just sort by years. If it's pre-2000s, pre-2010s, maybe you don't need it. Unless it's your house deed, please do not throw that away. Be mindful of that. And then also getting a team together, if you have some maybe neighbors or family or friends that can help you kind of tackle it down, is always helpful. I will share a quick story. ARP, we haven't been in our offices for 2 years. I came back into an office that was just a bunch of boxes that people had just thrown in that they didn't need anymore. And I was a little overwhelmed by that. But we got a team of 6 volunteers, and within 1 day, we cleared out the whole garage and organized and sorted it, which I did not expect, but it just goes to show the power of a team can really break down and make the work that much easier. And we had a lot of fun together which I don't want to miss. So that connection relationship piece is also helpful. So if you can get a team together or take it one by one, combine it with other tasks you like, it'll hopefully kind of start to reduce the amount of papers that you have going.
That's good. I found it with myself, if someone is with me, I'll get more done. And so I have invited one of my daughters to come over to work on a project, and I've offered to pay her to do this project so that when she comes over, then I also work on a project. And then I have accountability. So the project for her is fun. I want her to be creative as she can be. The project for me is not quite so fun. And but there's someone there I hold myself accountable to. And then she checks in and says, "How you doing on that, Dad?" And it's an encouragement for me, and it kind of works both ways. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I bring my mail when it gets too much over my brother-in-law's, and I just sort through it. Again, it's a little accountability. While he's just sitting there on his cell phone and watching TV, I sort through my mail. For me, it's always been helpful to have somebody with, and it can be whoever it happens to be. And the challenge with that is sometimes we end up talking instead of getting anything done. So we kind of have to remind ourselves why we're together and what it is that we're doing. We both work on a project in the house. Usually it's sorting something. So
Yeah,
Diane, go ahead, Tiffany.
I was gonna say that's a great idea, Chris. And at the very least, hopefully from this presentation, you feel like we can be your accountability buddies to kind of kickstart maybe one tip or starting one way, or even you can be that accountability for somebody else that that you're like, oh, maybe they just need a place to start, or I learned this new tip today. So we just hope you took away some kind of learning from today's presentation. And also, I know Tina and Trayvon are doing a lot of great programming. So hopefully there's other activities that you can listen in on and learn something new and continue to share that with your communities. So yeah, we appreciate your time today. And Diane has something to share.
I found a good buddy with a big truck because in cleaning out my parents' estate, because they had a lot of hazardous waste, like old paint and I don't know, my brother's car parts and stuff like that, which is full of grease. And he happily came and hauled it over to the proper disposal places. So, it's nice to have a buddy with the big truck too.
Yeah, that's a good tip. That's like ask for help. Sometimes we don't always ask for help.
Yes, I see John has his hand up. You're on mute,
Yes,
John.
yes,
There you
indeed.
go.
Thank you. What I was hoping that you might do is give us some specific organizations or locations for each of the categories that you were talking about. Where are some good places to help you sell things? Where are some good places for donations? Where are the good nations, or where are the companies that do the shredding, and who can come to your house with a dumpster and so you can dump stuff into it? If you could give me a list of each one of those categories of specific organizations or companies that do that, that would be very helpful.
Thank you, John. Tiffany, is that the chat, the things in the chat, is that something we can send out?
You can use that as a tactic. I will say, John, a lot of those organizations are localized. So I don't know is this Tina's mainly this group around the San Jose area. I saw someone was from Florida, or is there something that we can maybe look at for local resources?
I think the one on the chat has a lot of good tips. Next doors, all those things. We can actually sort through the chat and send it out to you, John. And then if Tiffany,
that would be good. That would be good.
If there's any national organization, maybe that would help also if you have a list of that.
Yeah. I'm thinking of Habitat for Humanity, for example.
Yep.
And Job Train, and these are local to Redwood City area. But I'm accumulating a whole bunch of things that need shredding. So companies that do shredding, that kind of thing, that would be helpful.
I found a lot of announcements on Nextdoor so that's local, about shredding events coming up.
Hmm.
But also things, I think like Office Depot has sometimes, and I think our senior center had one. I'm in Mountain View. But yeah, they're really limited too. You have to catch it on time. They're usually like a 4-hour or 8-hour at max, and only one day.
I'm hoping, as Tiffany mentioned, that AARP will sponsor a shredding event in our
Yeah, that'd be great.
areas. So not only would I like to help with that, but I'd like to bring a lot of stuff to get shredded.
Yeah, me too. So actually, Tina and Tiffany, MJ and I started actually a list that John's asking for.
Oh, okay.
Great,
Don't
thank you,
tell me you
Jen.
shredded it.
It was in that to shred box, yes.
Perfect. So we'll get that to you, Tina, and we can
Yeah.
hopefully build that out there. And then I know someone wanted a copy of the slides. We'll get that to you as well for reference. And we'll send the survey link to you if you all don't mind filling it out. That'll be great.
Great. Thank you so much, Tiffany, Chris, and Diane. Always appreciate APR's participation.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tina.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Tiffany, Chris, and Diane, and the rest of the group for your
Oh,
kindness. That was really
Before
wonderful.
we
Thank you.
leave, do you want to instruct them how to save the chat?
I think we can. I have the chat. I'll put the relevant information there.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.